and welcome back. Today, as I mentioned in the last video, I want to discuss the 7 forms of lightsaber combat. Now, as a disclaimer at the front, let me say that these are things that exist within the Star Wars universe, and so any interpretation that you find of them in the real world is going to be just that, an interpretation. Today I wanted to cover the theory of them and how they work with the lightsaber. The basic idea of the forms of lightsaber combat are that they are self-contained styles. Now, while a lot of interpretations use a scaffolding method whereby you learn the earlier forms and then you learn the later, the concept of them was that they could be studied separately. They're based off of the idea that as the role of the Jedi in society evolved, so did the use of the lightsaber. The first form is called Shii-Cho, or Way of the Sarlacc. You may remember the Sarlacc as the giant sand tentacle monster that was in the original trilogy. The technique of Shii-Cho is basically a technique for battling the environment. It sees the lightsaber as a tool and utilizes big strikes and large movements and power. Form 2 is called Makashi. It's the way of the Ysalamiri. Now, they were something that existed in the book series that were a sort of a cross between a cat and a lizard that had the ability to suppress force abilities. Makashi was a style or a form that was created to deal with dueling. Specifically, when the Sith arrived and people with lightsabers ended up having to duel other people with lightsabers, this form was what they would use. This form views the lightsaber as a weapon. It's a technique for dueling or battling a single adversary, and it uses precise strikes. You see this in the prequel trilogy through the used by Count Dooku. Form 3 is called Soresu, the way of the Mynock. Mynocks are the things that you saw in the original trilogy feeding off the power lines on the Millennium Falcon. This views the lightsaber as a shield and was designed when blasters came into the equation for deflecting blaster bolts. You see this several times during the movies. In hand-to-hand or in lightsaber-to-lightsaber combat, it was a technique for defense, using guards and blocks. You see this through the moves of Obi-Wan. Style 4, or Form 4, is called Ataru, the way of the Hawkbat. Hawkbats are quick and agile. This sees the lightsaber as an extension of the body. It makes great use of acrobatics, jumps, spins. Often within canon, it's jumps aided by manipulation of the Force. It's a technique for incorporating movement. Realistically, the closest thing that we have to this is the idea of tricking. You see this in the original trilogy when you see lightsaber battles featuring Yoda. Form 5 is Shien, or Djem, the way of the Krayt Dragon. Krayt Dragons are large and ferocious, formidable adversaries. This sees the lightsaber as a shield and a weapon, so in this way, Djem and Shien are kind of like Shii-Cho meets Soresu. Basically, if you're dealing with sports wushu or staged martial arts, you're dealing with something that's going to look a lot like this concept. Shien and Djem also introduced the reverse grip, as you saw with Garrick in the Force Unleashed video games. Form 6 is Niman, the way of the Rancor. The Rancors, while large and lumbering, were also fast, armored, and sharp. They were a well-rounded creature. Niman sees the lightsaber as a force focus. It's a style that was usually chosen by counselors, by people who did not primarily engage in dueling or combat. It's a technique that I will talk about a lot later. For right now, I will mention that you see this in the Knights of the Old Republic series through the character of Revan. Niman is also where you primarily find dual wield or Jar-Kai, and also where you find saber staff through the use of multiple tools. Form 7 is Juyo, the way of the Vornsker. Vornsker is basically a wolf. It's the lightsaber as an extension of ferocity or a tool of escalation. It's a technique for venting. It incorporates emotional purgatives, and it views the lightsaber as kind of like the equivalent of beating a pillow, a way to vent. You see this in the original or in the prequel series through the use of Mace Windu, and debatably also through the style of Darth Maul. In real practice, interpreting this into the real world, it can be scaffolding, as is taught through Terra Prime Lightsaber, but it also can be self-contained. As all are interpretations, none of those is necessarily correct. Under my interpretation, Forms 1, 2, and 3 are combat useful. They deal with hitting things and people and not getting hit. They're things that you're going to find in dueling groups. Forms 3, 4, 5, and 6 are performance useful. They're a demonstration of ability. They may have martial elements, but they're designed to be bigger than that. You'll find them in choreography groups, and you'll find them in performance martial arts. Forms 6 and 7 are spiritually useful, meaning that they accomplish something else. You're going to find them in flow arts, and you're going to find them in personal development or movement science. Form 6 is where I will be focusing in the next video. So join me back here, and hopefully this has been of help.